Record to the cloud. All right, we're recording. So we do have some people coming to join us in person, and we have obviously folks joining us on the webinar. For those of you in person, maybe look over each other's shoulder. Yeah, okay, sure. Do you want to do it through HDMI?
I'm just doing Google Cam.
Okay. I'll let you do that.
The TV on?
Yeah. So while you're doing that, so I'm going to just input, and then the Chromebox, right? I think it's that one. Okay, so if you are joining us on the webinar, again, my name is Erin Blasky. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Allspark. I'm going to let Daniel, our guest speaker, introduce himself. You should be able to see Daniel's screen right now and title slide and stuff. I'll just confirm we're good. Okay, and maybe just do a quick note in the chat that you can hear us before we get going, if you're able to chat. And you'll have to tell me if anyone types in there because I don't have the chat window open. No one's chatting? Then I'm assuming that we'll assume it's fine. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're good? Okay, perfect. So Daniel, I'll let you take it away, and we are recording, and please make it interactive. Post questions if you have them.
Perfect. Thanks, Erin. So welcome everybody. My name is Daniel Abraham. I'm the founder of Mogul Lead Generation. I've been working with lead generation and startups for about 5 years now. My background started with Ascend Compliance, where I started as a business developer. Done everything from mid-market business development, enterprise business development, even small business development. I then worked my way up onto the account executive team, have done mid-market account executive roles as well as enterprise account executive roles. So I have a fair bit of experience on both the business development side and the account executive side. I've worked with about 10 different software startup companies to help them increase their sales revenue, growth, and improve their brand awareness. And one of the reasons that I'm so interested in lead generation is because the massive opportunity that software startup companies have to quickly, start increasing their sales revenue and getting their company out to the world with lead generation. So a lot of companies start off, with word of mouth. They, go to their network for initial sales. But as everybody knows, revenue is so important to startup companies. It gives them the ability to invest back into their product, to grow their team. So really focusing on different ways that you can, get those sales and increase revenue at the start is so important. When people typically open up a company, they don't have the human resources to go out and build a business development team or to build a sales team. So it's really on the founders or the initial team to get sales. Today, what I want to do is talk about how using different lead generation techniques through mainly outbound sales, you can quickly increase sales. And in my experience, I've seen companies sell within just a few days of starting a lead generation process, which has really helped the growth of the company. So again, feel free to reach out, ask questions. I want to make this as interactive as possible. I'm going to be walking through, the opportunities and some of the different ways that you can use lead generation, go over the different channels that I've had the most experience with, and then I'll talk about some examples with some companies that you guys might be familiar with, how they've been able to grow with lead generation. I'll then flip over to a couple of the tools that I use and actually walk you guys through how using a few different tools you guys can generate growth. So again, I guess I'll get started, or do you guys think I should wait a couple minutes? I'm good to go. All right. So we're going to be going over some topics, as you can see on the screen. First, we'll go over the challenges and lead generation today. Then the importance of lead generation, also talk about some of the opportunities. Then we'll be looking at how to plan, build, and execute a lead generation campaign. Take a look at some of the different channels that you can use for lead generation, some of the different strategies that I like, go over some success stories, and then at the end, I'd like to walk you guys through a few different workflows. So again, feel free to jump in and stop me at any time, or just ask some questions. So typically some of the common challenges with lead generation today, a founding team might be 3 or 4 different people. You might have a little bit bigger or smaller of a team, but the resources are typically limited for lead generation. It's such an important aspect of a company's growth and stability, yet most people don't have the time it takes to invest in lead generation. And that might be, because they don't believe that that's the best use of their time, or, they've never actually seen it happen in real time. But limited resources is definitely one of the challenges right now as to why companies aren't able to generate leads themselves or as many as they'd like. Time constraints. So very quickly, I'd like to mention how important time is with lead generation. Whether you're doing email marketing, whether you're doing cold calling or social outreach, the key to lead generation is really investing time. If you're able to do 1,000 emails, or if you send 10,000 emails, obviously you're going to have a better chance to generate leads the more time that you invest. Another typical problem is because of the fact that you need to put so much time into lead generation to see results. A lot of people, they might do 30 minutes of email marketing or 30 minutes of cold calling, and then they don't get the results that they want. So they instantly assume that it doesn't work. I'm not sure if anyone's had experience with this in the past, but time is necessary for a successful lead generation campaign. Now, it's obviously ideal if you had somebody who was able to do full-time with lead generation, but there's typically a correlation with the amount of time invested and the results that you're going to see. So just quickly, talking about a typical scenario, as you increase the amount of time that you put towards lead generation, if your process stayed the same, obviously that's going to mean more results, more sales meetings, more at-bats for your sales team to close deals. As a founder, it's ideal to have somebody doing lead generation for you, and then you can be taking the sales meetings. I try and work out a situation where you have a 1-to-1 ratio where you have one person generating leads and ideally filling up the calendar of either the founder or the closer. In a perfect world, as a founder, you could have a full calendar where your day is consisting of taking good quality leads and converting those into new business, and then you could have somebody generating those leads. But it's really important to know that time equals or the more time that you put, the more success you're going to get. Another common challenge is that there's just more important tasks for a founder to be dealing with. Obviously, there's nothing more important than closing deals, but it's really tedious work to generate leads. A lot of it is going to be repetitive work that a founder, isn't going to want to spend their time on. And then all of this results into a smaller sales pipe. For initial growth for a startup, having a big sales pipe, having more companies to talk to, not only does it give you a better chance to sell, but it also gives you a chance to get your name out there, to start educating prospects, and to really deliver your message to people around the world. So I'm going to go into the importance of lead generation and then combine this with some of the opportunities. As you know, the title of today's discussion is all about increasing sales revenue, accelerating growth, and then also improving brand awareness. Most people don't associate brand awareness with lead generation, but if you consider in a typical lead generation process, whether it's emails, calls, or messaging, one person can reach out to about 3,000 to 4,000 people in a day. Now, those seem like lofty targets, but if you have a good message, if you filtered the right list and you're working at it all day, 8 to 10 hours in a day, you can touch, I've done the math, about 400 people in an hour, 500 people in an hour. So if you consider the fact that your target market, it might be 1 million, it might be 5 million different companies that you guys can be reaching out to, you can actually get in front of, a couple thousand people every single day with a tailored message that's going to be pitching your product to these people. So most people, invest money into paid ads, which is good, but you can't really control the amount of people that are going to be able to read that message. So if you're a new product and you're trying to introduce something that most people aren't even aware exists. Going out with a good lead generation process is going to first increase your brand awareness. So again, this is something where you can tailor your message, you can tailor the person that you're going to be reaching out to, but you're really going to be able to start educating people and creating awareness around your brand right from day one. I'm not sure if anyone's had that problem where you have a great product and that you know people are interested in this product, but you're just not able to get in front of them and have that conversation. Well, lead generation is a great way to do that. The second one would be building sales pipe. As a company opens, you obviously have a sales pipe of 0 on day one. Building that sales pipe is crucial to start closing deals today and in the future. I always look at lead generation as kind of a waterfall effect. You start doing something on day one, and by day 30, you might have 15 companies in your sales pipe. By the end of month 2, 30 companies in your sales pipe. By the end of month 3, 60 people. And as you start having these conversations, as you start moving deals through the sales pipe, more deals will start closing as you go along. One thing to keep in note is everybody has a different sales cycle. I've seen companies able to close deals on the second day of the sales cycle. Some companies might need 6 to 9 months. So putting more companies in that sales pipe, making sure that right from the first conversation you're doing everything that you can to shorten the sales cycle as you move forward is absolutely crucial. And a lot of people don't really consider that with lead generation you can actually have an effect on how quickly the deals close. On your first conversation, if you're targeting decision makers, if you're going out and getting C-level people interested, and then if you're arming them with the knowledge, skills, and the materials that they need to be able to go internally and start moving things forward, you can have an effect on how quickly it takes the deal to close. It's really important to work with your prospect, give them what they need, and then also pique enough interest so that they have the motivation to go internally, after the phone call ends or after, they close your email and actually try and move this forward. So closing deals is huge. We're working with a company right now, and I'll get into specifics closer towards the end. It's Noibu. I know they're one of Bellspark's company. And, we were able to, within the first 6 hours, generate 3 enterprise leads for them. Within the first week, Noibu was able to have a conversation and close a deal from the leads that we generated. So really right from the start, generating leads that fit within their ideal customer type, making sure that we're getting them connecting with the decision maker at that company, it can really have an effect on how quickly the deals close. And then lastly, using the sales revenue generated from those deals to be able to reinvest in your lead generation process, make your product better. I worked at a company called Ascent Compliance, and when I first started there, there was about 4 or 5 different companies that all were in a similar position, as in, they all had about the same amount of revenue. They all had, similar ideal client types. But the difference is that Ascent invested a lot more money into their lead generation process. They doubled the amount of people on their lead generation team. And what that did was it got their account executives talking to about 2 times more people as any other company. And if you keep your conversion rate the same, but you increase the amount of conversations you have by 100%, obviously you're going to close 2 times more deals. What that does is it gives you more revenue to reinvest in your product, in your lead generation team, and it really led to a snowball effect. If you're looking for an investment, obviously the faster growing company has a better chance of getting investment. And if you're able to get investment or get more investment than your competitors, obviously you have more money to put back into your process. And really there's a correlation between, how many conversations you're having with how many deals you're able to close. So getting more conversations, making those leads more qualified, and really getting in front of the right person will be able to help you do that. So planning, building, and executing on a lead generation campaign really all starts around the value proposition. So it's important to know that volume equals, the more volume, the more success you're going to have. But the second aspect to a lead generation campaign will be the quality. So when you're reaching out to someone, regardless of the channel that you're using, the big three channels that I like to use are cold calling, emailing, and then social outreach. But regardless of what channel you're using, it's all going to come down to how good your value proposition is. I like to break up the value proposition by your different product or services that you're offering. So each company has 3 or 4 different values. The types of values that I like to use most when I'm using lead generation would be how much you can increase sales, how much you can reduce costs, how much risk you can mitigate, and how much time you can save. These I find are the 4 values that are really going to help you click the most with the person you're speaking with. But every different product, and if we take Mogul Lead Generation and use this as an example, has a few different values that it can pitch. But you really want to be choosing the value that speaks the most to the person you're speaking with and pitching to increase your chance of conversion. So if you look at Mogul Lead Generation, what we do is outsourced lead generation services. We provide training and coaching, and then we also do consulting. So each of those 3 services that we offer have a different value proposition. If we look at the outsourced lead generation services, what we're going to help companies do is increase their sales while reduce their costs. Now those values are going to be different if we're looking at coaching and training. If we're talking about coaching and training, we're going to increase the quality of their reps and reduce the cost acquisition cost per rep. If we're looking at consulting, we're going to help them improve productivity and efficiency. So all of these can tie back to increasing revenue, decreasing costs, reducing or removing risk, and then also reducing the amount of time it takes. But you really want to choose the value that speaks most to the service that you're pitching. So when you're reaching out to someone, if you tell them, we do outsource lead generation, we also do training and coaching, and then we also do consulting, all 3 of those services aren't going to be exactly what that person wants. You're best off choosing which service you believe your prospect or the person you're reaching out to is going to see the most value in and pitch that. Lead generation has success when you come off as the expert. So instead of throwing everything at the wall and hoping it sticks, you really want to do some research on the person that you're reaching out to and seeing which value is going to be most important to them. If you're reaching out to a C-level person, you're going to have a different value than if you're reaching out to a manager or a specialist. When you're talking to somebody on the C-level side of things, they're going to care more about the ROI. When you're talking to a specialist and pitching ROI, they're not really going to feel as much of an impact on them specifically, because the ROI of an overall company doesn't really change their life. When you're speaking to a specialist, you might want to talk towards reducing time. If they're doing something that's heavily time consuming, speaking to how you can automate will give them more perceived value than to a CEO. If you're talking to a CEO, vice versa, and you're telling them how they're going to save time, they aren't necessarily going to be saving time themselves, so they won't be able to react as much to the actual message. Another thing that you want to do when you're pitching your value proposition is you always want to be talking about a problem that you can solve. Now, if it's a problem that they have never experienced, the message isn't going to have as much impact as if they've experienced that problem and you're telling them how you're going to solve it. For example, if my car has no problems and I'm really enjoying my car, and somebody comes to me and says, we can help you fix a flat tire, this is how we'll do it. That's not really going to speak to me because I haven't experienced that problem. Therefore, I'm probably going to brush that off and assume that message was sent and I was part of a spam list. If you reach out to me and I do have a flat tire and you talk about how you help solve that problem for somebody who actually has that flat tire and they've experienced that problem themselves, then you're going to have a lot better chances of converting them into a next step. Going on to the messaging is also extremely important, because when you're sending out such a high volume of messages, if you're making so many calls, tweaking your messaging to be able to increase your conversion from 1 to 2% over, a couple thousand messages a day, therefore, hundreds of thousands of messages over the course of a year. If you're able to increase your conversion rate by just 1%, that's going to have a huge impact on your overall success. So creating messaging, is going to be different for email, for messaging, or for cold calling. Very briefly, I'll talk about kind of the frameworks that I use to create a message, and you can use this framework across any type of product or service. So the first thing that you want to do, obviously, is get your message or your email read. So I'm going to start off just by talking about messaging and emailing. The first problem that most people have is that they can't get their message even opened. Typical open rates are around 30%. If you can get 30% of people to open your message, then you're doing great. So you don't want to create a subject that is going to give away what you're doing, because the way to get people to open a message is by piquing interest, but not giving away everything. If you received an email with a subject, quick question, you're probably going to want to know what that question is, and it might make you curious enough that you're going to open the email. If you had an email with the title, 50% off savings at store X, you already know what the message is going to be about. If you don't care too much about that store, or if you don't want to shop at that store, or you aren't looking to buy clothes, then you're not even going to open that message because you feel as if you know what that message is about. So the subject is extremely important. You want to pique interest, but you don't want to give everything away. If you've done some research and the person's title is e-commerce manager, you might make a subject title e-commerce question. That means that they know that it's relevant to them, and that you have a question, but you're not telling them exactly what the message is about. I think that that's a good message that will pique enough interest to get somebody to open. We've done experimentation, and that's one of the best things that we found, is to take something relevant to your prospect, but then leave enough room for curiosity. Then once you actually get somebody to open the message, the next thing you want to do is to engage them early on. You have about 3 to 5 seconds to grab enough interest of a prospect before they're going to move on and X your message or close it. So the first thing that you always want to do is start by asking a question. Asking a question can be really anything, but the main goal when you ask a question is make it a relevant enough question where you can already kind of know what the answer is going to be. So to give you an example, for us, we're trying to pitch outsourcing lead generation. We might ask a question like, are you looking to increase sales? Or are you looking to get more enterprise sales leads? Are you looking to grow your company to 10K MRR? It really depends who you're speaking to. And again, it all comes back to knowing the prospect and doing a bit of research on them. But if you're reaching out to somebody who's a sales director or a VP of growth, you know what matters to them and what's important to them. So starting off with a question that's really going to grab their interest is important, because it's going to give you a chance for them to actually read your pitch. So right after the question, then you're going to come out with your value proposition and a bit of social proof. So, when you're sending an email or you're sending a message or making a cold call, your prospect doesn't know who you are most of the time, unless you're working with a company and you have a big brand name behind you. So you really need to inject some social proof into your messaging, because social proof is the #1 reason why people will gain trust and then also see you as an authority. So your second line can be something like, I'm reaching out because we work with other tech companies in the space, or I'm reaching out because we work with similar companies like Jack and Jones, or I'm reaching out because we're working with other auto retail companies around your size. So starting off with some social proof to instantly gain their trust, and then finish off with your value proposition. So it can be something like, we're working with other apparel companies in your space. to help them improve conversion rates on their e-commerce site. Or we're working with other tech companies in Ottawa to help them increase sales. So you're going to start off with your social proof, and then you're going to finish with your value prop. It's important also to do all of this in as few words as possible. You want to cut out fluff when you're reaching out to people. No one has time to read fluff. You want to get right to the point. Think about sales or lead generation as you pitching to your friend over a beer at the bar. You know, if you're talking to your friend, you're not going to have to sell them with a bunch of fluff. You're going to get right to the point. One way I like to do this is when I'm creating a message, think about me sending a message to my colleague and try and write with the same tone. If you put somebody on a pedestal, they're probably going to look down on you. So you want to speak to them as an equal and really just be all about providing value. One thing that I'll do is I'll write a message and then I'll look through the message and see if there's anything that I can remove or any words that I can cut out to make sure that I'm delivering nothing but value. So now we've got our question. The second line is going to be your social proof with value. And your last line might be your most important. It's going to be your call to action. Call to action is extremely important because it's what's going to get somebody to take a next step. You know, with emailing and messaging, a call to action has to be a clear, actionable item that your prospect can take forward. Typically with lead generation, your goal is to get them on a conversation or a demo with your account executive or with your senior colleague. So your call to action can be, do you have time to chat? Do you have 5 to 10 minutes to chat sometime later this evening or next week? I found that it really works if you give them 2 different options. You know, if you say, do you have 5 to 10 minutes to chat today or tomorrow, or 5 to 10 minutes to chat Friday or next week, there's something about giving them 2 different options, you know, that makes them focus on which day works better for them, as opposed to if they should accept this or not. So just to summarize everything, when you're building a message around email or social outreach, starting with a question that you know is gonna you know, be relevant for them. If you can put together a question that you know the answer to, then that's even better. So are you looking to increase sales revenue, or are you looking to generate more enterprise sales leads? Second will be your social proof and your value proposition. You know, we're working with other apparel companies in Ottawa to increase their conversion rates on their e-commerce site. Or we're working with other software tech companies in Ottawa to help them generate more sales leads. And then lastly, you're going to want to do a clear call to action that can look something like, do you have 5 to 10 minutes to chat sometime tomorrow evening or next week? So you can create messaging around that. One thing to note is that to get the best message, it takes experimentation and data. Throughout all of this, you need to be tracking your data to know which message works the best. The longer that you're running a campaign with a specific message set, you're going to know if this message is working, especially if you have data to compare it to. So typically what we'll do is we'll start off building 3 or 4 different messages, and we'll give each message a chance to start gathering some data on. You know, we might try one message for the first 4 hours of a day, try another message for the last 4 hours, compare which message is getting more results and is booking more meetings, and then, you know, determine which message is going to be the message that you use moving forward. Every campaign starts with experimentation, but the end goal is to get to a point where you have a few different templates for messages that you know work the best for these different types of people, and then continuously drill down on using those messages to get ideal results. You only have 8 hours in a day. You know, if you have a full-time person doing this, especially for a founder, you might only have 2 hours to dedicate towards lead generation. You want to make sure that you're spending those 2 hours, you know, where you can get the best results. So having the data, trying out different messages, experimenting, those are ways that you're going to be able to take that 2 hours a day and get, you know, 2 meetings booked, as opposed to 0. And then, really just making the best use of your time. Looking at your target market. So your target market and your target list are also extremely important, because you want to make sure that you're sending these messages to the right people, again, to make the best use of your time. So there's 2 ways to do that when you're just putting together an initial campaign. If you're a brand new company with no data, you might not know who your best target market is. You might have an idea of the types of companies that you think will see the most value from this, but you don't have the data or experience to be able to say, these companies are actually using and buying our product. They see the most value in our product. One thing you can do is take a look at competition, go on their websites, see who's buying their product. If there's no competition, then you're just going to have to experiment and gather the data yourself. But if you can spend your time talking to people that are actually going to see value in your product, obviously you're going to increase your results. Same thing with the list. What I mean by list is the different people you're reaching out to in specific. Most companies find it difficult to reach out to C-level people and to book meetings with CEOs, COOs, VPs, directors, and most people with managers or specialists. What we've actually been able to do is go after director level and above people and generate leads and sales meetings with those types of people, because that's the easiest way to shorten your sales cycle, to make sure that the person that you're generating the lead with actually has decision-making power. So when you're, again, going to create your list and to create your target market, those are some of the things you're going to want to do. I'm actually going to walk you through at the end 2 of the tools that I like to use when I'm building a list of people to reach out to. It's really important that you don't spend too much time looking for emails, looking for phone numbers, and looking for people to reach out to. So filtering a list that's going to give you, 100,000 or 20,000 different people that you can reach out to right away is going to be able to shorten the amount of time it takes looking for people and to increase the amount of time that you're actually reaching out to people. So I've already kind of gone over the experimenting and the analyzing, but just quickly, lead generation is all about data. Using the data to know what works and what doesn't work is extremely important. If you're not tracking data, you're going to be doing a lot of things that are, maybe not the best use of your time. So in terms of different channels, cold calling and emailing have been around forever. One different channel that I think is being underutilized, and I know a lot of companies aren't traditionally doing, is social messaging. So I'll go over the different channels and talk about which each one can be beneficial for. But just to go over briefly, social messaging, and I know that I'm missing an A there, I just noticed, sorry for that, would be things like reaching out to people on LinkedIn, sending messages on Facebook. It all depends on where your ideal customers are, but getting in front of people through a different way where maybe your competitors aren't reaching out to them. I'll give you kind of 2 stories. So Airbnb used Craigslist as a platform that they could use to send messages to get people to list their homes or vacation properties on Craigslist. So they would reach out to people renting a home and say, why don't you list your home on Craigslist? What we did when we first started off, so Mogul Lead Generation didn't start off working with tech companies. We started off with small businesses. We used Kijiji as a platform to message people on, and we were able to generate 20 to 30 sales meetings a day using Kijiji. So if you think about it, on Kijiji, people who post their services on Kijiji are obviously looking to increase their sales. So if you're a carpenter, if you are a painting company and you're posting an ad on Kijiji, you're telling the world essentially that you want more sales. So you're also telling us that you might not have the money to advertise on Google. We can tell if you have a website or not. So what Mogul would do would be reach out to people posting ads on Kijiji, actually responding to their ads saying, are you looking to get more sales? If so, I'd love to have a conversation about how we can help you, just like we've done for other painting companies in Ottawa. First thing we talked about was getting them to open your message. If you're responding to an ad that they're trying to sell their products and services, they're going to open every single message. So our open rate was in the 90%. The second was we asked them if they were looking to increase sales. We knew they were trying to increase sales because they were posting ads to try and sell their product or service. That led to, about 40% of the people we were reaching out to wanting to have a conversation. And that was one of the ways that we were able to leverage social platforms to increase sales. Another thing would be, if you were reaching out to real estate agents, or if you were selling B2C, using Facebook, being able to get yourself into a group where, everybody was talking about real estate, and then maybe sending direct messages to the people on Facebook. I know a dog walking company would search the tag filter on Instagram for people posting pictures with their dogs, and then send direct messages to those people asking to follow their page, and if they needed any help with babysitting or watching their dog. So it really depends on if you're B2B, B2C, and where your customers are going to be living on social platforms. For most tech companies and startups selling B2B, you're going to want to use LinkedIn of all of the different social platforms. That's where you're going to find the most value. I'll use Noibu as another example just because everyone's familiar with them. We've really been using LinkedIn as a way to get more sales meetings for them that we could have ever imagined through email or cold calling. The good thing about LinkedIn is that you can create your profile, you have a picture, you have your location, you have your experience. So one of the biggest tricks with lead generation is building credibility and trust. If somebody receives an email, they may instantly assume that they're part of a spam list and that the person sending the email is overseas. Same thing with cold calling. A lot of people have the tendency to think that you're sitting at a call center and calling 100,000 people and they're just part of that list. When you send a LinkedIn message, there's no real tools to automate that. You can't really put something into an email sender and have a LinkedIn blast. What you can do is you can pay for a paid service where LinkedIn will send messages, but then that will come up as a paid message. So again, when you send a message to somebody on LinkedIn, the first thing that they're going to do before responding to you is to click your profile. They're going to be able to take a look at you. If you're the founder of a tech company, you're instantly going to gain credibility if you have some experience in the space. And I'll just flip to my LinkedIn for a quick second. If you look at my LinkedIn, when I'm reaching out to people for, trying to pitch Mogul Lead Generation and outsource lead generation services, the first thing that they're going to do is take a look at my profile. So you want to make your headline kind of tell them in a few words what your value is to them. So get in front of decision makers, increase sales revenue. So that's gonna help you pitch your services. Going down, probably the most important thing is they're gonna look at your job experience. So if you're reaching out and you have a lot of experience in the space, you're gonna be looked at as a credible source and an authority, as opposed to somebody overseas at a call center, or someone just essentially putting together a 1,000-person email spam list and just blasting off. So for me, if I'm trying to pitch that we can help people with business development, you can see that I've done business development pretty much at every level. Like I said, I've done enterprise business development. I've been the director of business development teams. I've been the manager. So these are all primarily at tech companies as well. So when I'm trying to pitch that, hey, I can help you increase sales revenue, accelerate growth, and improve your brand awareness, I've done it before. People can look at my profile and then see that I am an authority in the space. So making sure that your profile is filled out as much as possible is huge. Making sure that your headline is catchy enough that if someone just sees a snapshot of your page, you're providing the most value to them and telling them what you can do for them. That'll be the first thing they see. One thing that I need to improve on, but is really important, is getting more recommendations. Again, testimonials, recommendations, that's something that's huge as well. if other people can sell for you, then you're off to a good start. So as a founder, one of the things that I would do first is I would touch up my LinkedIn profile. And even if you only have an hour or 2 hours a day, make sure that you're going through and connecting with people, and also sending messages. With LinkedIn alone, in a full 8-hour day, when a process is done right and you're selling something that actually provides value, I've typically averaged about 3 to 4 sales meetings a day, and also not just sales meetings with specialists and managers. I'm only targeting director level and above. I'll get to it later in my slide and talk about some of the people that we've been able to book meetings with. But again, for Mogul, we've been able to book about 3 to 4 meetings a day with CEOs, and then for some of our clients, C-level meetings using LinkedIn. I'll jump back to the presentation, and then towards the end, I'll try and talk about and actually show you a walkthrough about how you guys can do that yourself. So just very quickly, cold calling is something that takes skill. Cold calling is something that you can't really just follow a script for, because people can throw you off guard with questions. So if you're going to cold call, what I would highly recommend is that you as the founder are cold calling, or somebody with sales experience is doing it for you. With all 3 of these, you're representing your brand and you're introducing yourself to the world, essentially. So if you want to be generating leads with C-level contacts or VPs, you want to make sure that you're being able to provide as much value as possible. With a cold call, the messaging would be a little bit different than with email and social outreach. What I would do with a cold call is start off by saying something like, sorry to catch you off guard, I know you're busy, but, and then I would insert my value prop. You don't want to, nobody has time to have a 20-minute conversation with somebody. And again, when you're just generating leads, your goal is just to get somebody on a meeting. So what I would do if you were going to cold call people, and what works best, is just reaching out from XYZ. I wanted to see if you would see value in working with a platform that could help you increase sales and lower costs. Just very briefly gauge their interest with your value prop. They'll tell you, yes, I see value in that, or no, I don't see value in that. If they do see value in that, I would say, great, I wanted to connect you with a senior colleague of mine. Do you have 5 to 10 minutes? Or if you're the founder, great, I'd love to schedule some time to chat. But you don't necessarily want to go through a traditional script where, hey, how's your day? Great, thanks. How's your work day going? What are you eating for lunch? Most people don't really have time for that, and you just want to get right to the point and book a meeting. So, I'm not a massive fan of cold calling for that reason. Also, when you're cold calling people, a lot of people might say things just to get you off of a call. They might tell you, yeah, sure, I'll meet, and then ghost you. Traditionally, with cold call, you see the most amount of people not show up to a call or to a meeting, just because of the fact that they're put on the spot. They don't really have too much time to think about this. But if you do want a cold call, it's the easiest way to get instant results. I would make sure that you either are like the founder, or you have somebody who has pretty good sales skills to do the cold call for you. And then again, just get in and get out, pitch value, let them know, sorry for catching you off guard. Do you have some time to talk about this? And then book a time for next step. For emails and messaging, again, I've talked about the message that I would send. From there, one of the trickiest things to do is actually get the meeting booked and then to get them accepted, because somebody might say yes to an email and then never respond to you moving forward. So what we'll traditionally do is, the second somebody says yes, we'll go and we'll find their email using Zoom Info or using another tool. We'll send them a calendar invite. I'll send them a message back saying, great, I'm going to send you a calendar invite now. Does this email work best? And then if that's on LinkedIn, then I'll send them the calendar invite through email. And then I'll also send a note following up, just saying, hey, just send you a calendar invite. A big thing too is you don't want to go back and forth too much trying to find a time. So one of the things that we'll do is make the event modifiable, put in the description of the calendar invite feel free to modify the time as needed, and then send them a message saying, just wanted to put something on our calendars. Feel free to change the date or time as needed. Again, once you get somebody to accept the calendar invite, you should be in the clear. But probably about 50% of the times that somebody says yes to your first message, it's still, somebody still isn't going to respond to your second message. So once you get the yes, once you get somebody express their interest, you want to send the calendar invite as quickly as possible. You have about 5 minutes to respond to them. After 5 minutes of somebody responding to you, the chances of them responding again go down significantly. So the second they say yes, you want to send over the calendar invite and follow up there. I know we have about 15 minutes, so I'll try and get through this quickly and then just show you a couple tools. Some different strategies you can use, or you can incorporate all of these together. A high volume approach. So this approach is where you kind of just spray everything, trying to see what you can pick up. This is good for somebody who's new to business development, somebody who's just starting a new business development campaign and doesn't have much data. What you'll do is you'll start off by choosing a bunch of different industries that you think might be in scope. You might choose, 5 or 6 different people at a few different at a company. You might try somebody in operations, somebody in sales, and then just start firing off. This is kind of putting your head down and just getting as many messages out there in a day. This works. Obviously, your quality or conversion is going to be down a bit, but the more messages you send, obviously the more responses you're going to get. Lead generation can kind of be looked at as like a treasure hunt where, you're selling, let's say, e-signature, and there are people right now out in the world who are currently talking about whether or not they should implement e-signature. Now, it's your job as somebody doing lead generation to find that person. Once you find that person, you don't really have to sell to them, especially when you're just trying to get them on a call. These people are already sold on the idea. You just want to get to them. And when you do that, it's an instant connection. So, all the time we'll see people reach back saying, I was just thinking about this. I was just having a conversation with my partner about e-signature. We were just talking about how, we wanted to start looking into a solution. So this is kind of where the volume approach kicks in. You just throw everything out there and you're going to find people who are in need of your services or are currently experiencing a problem. The second one would be personalized. Now, this is where you're going to put more effort into researching your prospect, researching a company, maybe reaching around, trying to get a referral to the right person. Before reaching out, you'll look at their LinkedIn, their summary, what they're involved in at a company, and then you'll craft a message that's going to take maybe 10 to 15 minutes, but your conversion rate is going to be a lot higher. If you're going to reach out to CEOs, I highly suggest not going the volume approach, but going the personalized approach. Top down is where you go to the C-level people, and then normally from there, they'll give you a referral with the right person. So to give you an example, you can call a C-level person, hey, sorry to catch you off guard. I'm looking for the person who oversees this. They'll go, it's Jim. Once you get a C-level person to refer you to the right person, your chances of converting that to a lead and then also to a sale are much higher. When, as a manager, you're told by your CEO, Mogul reached out, have a conversation with them, there's a fairly good chance that this is going to convert. Obviously, you're not going to get as many of these leads, but when you do, it's extremely good. With the bottom up, it's the opposite. You're going to start with people on the lower level to gather information. You might call around, talk to a specialist. This is good when you're looking for information. If you talk to people, they'll give you information. They'll tell you who the right person is. You can use their information so that when you do speak to the C-level person, you've got information on the company. And then, you can use this to put together your best pitch. Going down, so this month alone in October, we've generated leads with a C-level contact at Bed Bath & Beyond, scheduled a meeting, Whirlpool, VP using email, and then Fitbit using cold call. So again, with Bed Bath & Beyond, we reached out to a C-level person on LinkedIn reached back saying, what's your email? I'll have my assistant reach out and set up a call. And then, on that call, they brought 2 other people, and, they've already signed an NDA, and that's looking like a great lead. With Whirlpool, same thing. We reached out through email. We've set up a call, and with Fitbit, cold call, same thing. So just want to show that you can talk to Fortune 500 companies, you can talk to enterprise level companies, and this stuff works if you have a good process. You don't want to start off with these companies. You want to start off with smaller companies to figure out what messaging works best, so that when you do get to these companies, you'll give yourself the best chance to succeed. So here are some numbers for Noibu for this month alone. So we're just talking about October. We booked them 35 sales meetings, again with director level or above. 75, it's actually 78% of those meetings converted into a free trial. And I mean, right now it's only October 22nd, and they've already had 4 of those deals closed. So in October alone, with, we're only 3 weeks and 1 day into the month, we've already generated 35 meetings, and 4 of those have closed. So I've been going over everything pretty fast today, just because we only have an hour, and I want to make sure I touch on everything. But when lead generation is done right, you can see a massive ROI on it, just because, especially when you're selling something that has a reoccurring revenue, and when your deal sizes are fairly large. If you go out and get one business developer, let's use 5K as an example. I'm just using that because the investment cost should be a lot smaller than the overall revenue. If we take a look at, you investing in one person, if you can close, or if that one person can generate 20 sales meetings in a month, and your conversion rate is 20%, you're looking at closing 4 deals off of that initial investment of 5K. If your deals are, let's say 10K ARR, then you've already, over 400% ROI just within that month alone. But with reoccurring revenue, you have to remember that you might have that client paying for 3 to 5 years with the opportunity of upsells or expansion. So the ROI is huge. If you're selling to enterprise companies, your conversion rate might be a little smaller, but your deal might be 50K ARR. If you can close 1 or 2 of the 20 leads that you've booked, you're looking at an investment of $5,000 with 100,000 in ARR just off that 5,000. But you also might have that company for 5 years. So your return is about 500K. Your investment's $5,000. Really just depends on how long you have the client for, et cetera. But the ROI, I always say, if the ROI isn't at least 5 times your investment, I'm always aiming for 10 to 20 times your investment. But if it's not there, then it might mean that there's something, either wrong with the process, or that your product or service that you're selling isn't ideal for outbound lead generation. If you're selling to small businesses, or if it's a one-time deal, then you probably don't need outbound sales reps. The easiest way to do it would just be to have a link for somebody to make the sale directly, because obviously what you want to do there is lower your acquisition costs. But if you're selling something that has reoccurring revenue, and it's a decent sized contract, there's almost no way that you cannot be ROI positive, as long as your conversion rates are at least 5 to 10%. If you're able to close, 20%, 25% of the deals, then you're going to have a huge ROI. So very quickly, I want to show you just 2 tools that I use. I'll start with ZoomInfo. The first thing you want to do is obviously find the people to reach out to, and then get their contact information. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with ZoomInfo, but this is my favorite tool for finding people, for finding numbers and emails. So you can either, what I would typically do is start with industry. So if you're reaching out to people in healthcare, you'll click healthcare. And then if you want to go after, mid-market size businesses, you'll filter their revenue, let's say by 50 to 250 million ARR annually. Job title, you might be going after the VP of sales. or let's say a director of sales. So here we have 827 results for people in the healthcare industry who are director of sales between 50 to 250 million ARR. So Angel Cortez, you've got their number and you've got their email. You can also filter the location to make it the states. Let's do something. Another thing, instead of being so direct and say director of sales, you might say, I want to go for somebody in legal. And then you can also do their management level. So I want to be reaching out to people in legal who are director level and above. And here you have 338 results for directors, VPs, C-level contacts in healthcare between 50 to 250. If this isn't a big enough search for you, you can expand that from 25 million to 5 billion. The choice is really up to you, but it's really about getting in front of as many people as possible. So you want to make that the results number here as big as possible. So again, click on the person, you got their number and you got their email. You can also do the same if you're trying to do account-based sales. You can go after by the company level. So you can choose your industry, healthcare, your location, revenue, and now you have 2,400 people or companies, sorry. Now you can go through all of their contacts and choose a bunch of different people and get their information. I would recommend every founder get Sales LinkedIn Navigator. So this is Sales LinkedIn Navigator. You can search by lead or you can search by account. What I would typically do is search by lead. And I've got 4 minutes, so I'll just finish up with this, but this is really important. What you'll do is you'll filter by the industry. You know, if I'm reaching out to computer software companies, we'll have computer software. I like to reach out to C-level people, so I'll just put Chief Executive Officer. Your geography, United States. So right now, I've got 3,500 people who are CEOs for software companies in the States. Now my list here, I'll go through. There's 2 things that you can do. You can connect with them, which is something that I would recommend doing. You can connect with them and write a note here, and then you can send your invitation. Or you can go through and find people with this open profile here. You know it's an open profile because it has a little LinkedIn sign here right beside the name. With these people, you can send free messages. Or sorry, I might be at my limit, but essentially you can send free messages here. Send your message to them. So you have the option to connect and add a note, or you have the option just to send your message. If you connect with a bunch of people, I now have about 1,700 connections. A lot of people are my target market or the types of people that I'll be going after. Once you have like that many connections, then what you can do is share a blog post. And that's another way that you can get sales is by sharing stuff to your LinkedIn feed after you've connected with so many people in the space. And then, you know, they'll read, you'll have 1,000 people who are your target market reading your blog post, and then they can reach out to you. So that's a high level overview looking at, you know, LinkedIn, email, cold calls. Obviously we can get a lot more in detail. I just wanted to make sure we touched on everything, but that's what I have for today. So I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'll leave you guys with that. If anyone has a question, you can send me a message directly on LinkedIn. I can provide my email to you guys after, but feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions.
Awesome, thank you. This is Steph Reed from Elspark. We actually had a comment that was made earlier in the webinar. I'm not sure if you have any comments, but Scott from Click Armor saying, we have had the problem of paid ads not being very effective, probably for the reasons Daniel mentions. Our brand is not well known. Can you expand?
Yeah, so the problem with paid ads is that you're sending one message essentially to everybody who reads it. You're not able to personalize a message to each individual reader. And especially when you don't have a brand name, you know, most people aren't necessarily even gonna be able to know exactly what your ad is. What I would recommend, especially, I mean, paid ads is something that you want to be doing, but you want to, for paid ads, you want to be posting stuff that are more value providing for the consumers. So you can, you know, share a blog that tells people do a paid ad on a blog that might teach people the benefits of, let's say, e-signature as an example. But the first thing that I would always recommend doing is reaching out to people with a personalized message and really starting with a high volume approach, but also some personalization to make sure that people first know your brand and who you are. It's hard to give an exact example just because I'm not sure of the situation of your specific situation, but just really to try and simplify this, paid ads is essentially one standard message to whoever comes on and reads the message or the ad. You're not able to personalize that and choose who reads it. You can, post an area. So, we want to get readers in Ontario in this specific demographics. But the problem with paid ads compared to target is that, again, you can't really choose who comes on and reads it, and you can't personalize the message for each individual person. So yeah, that's a great question, and that's a common problem. But one thing that I would suggest is try to get an outreach plan where you can get a personalized message out to the person that you're actually wanting to reach.
Awesome. John, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah. What do we do with the people who don't respond in the first place, or the ones who respond and have a conversation with us and suddenly just stop responding?
So first, most people are not going to respond, so that's common. You can set up a cadence, or you can set up some sort of a plan for follow-ups. Follow-ups are huge. One of our customers actually just had somebody buy, and it took us 3 times reaching out with getting ignored to finally get them on a next step. So the situation was, we sent the initial message, they responded, and then they didn't respond anymore, like you just said. It's all about taking a look at what you said to make them respond in the first place, and what clicked for them to respond initially. And then on your follow-ups, you want to make sure that each follow-up you're providing value, so that it's not just somebody reading a message, hey, are you there? Or hey, do you want to chat? You want to make sure that on each follow-up message you're providing as much, if not more, value as you did on the first message. So what I would do is always start with people who haven't responded. There's a lot of people out there. I'd rather spend my time reaching out to people who haven't responded, who haven't gotten a message, than who haven't ignored it. But you're going to run out of people to reach out to if that's all you're doing. So you want to make sure that you have a follow-up plan. But when you're following up, you want to provide value. A lot of people just follow up. Hey, did you get my last message? But you're not providing value in your follow-up. You want to make sure that your follow-up has value. And being persistent is key. Don't think that they stopped answering me, they're not interested. People are busy. Most people aren't as focused on this message as you are. So it's easy to get in your own head and think like, it's been 5 minutes, they haven't responded, there's something wrong. Most people, they might think, or they're going to respond, something comes up, they forget about the conversation. So it's important to not be a pest and message them every few hours, but have a follow-up plan and make sure that when you're following up, you're providing value. That's my biggest advice. Provide value in your follow-ups. And if they initially responded and then stopped responding, make sure that you're hitting on whatever it was that you said in your initial message to get them to respond in the first place. One little trick I'll give you guys is if someone responds and they're interested and then they stop responding, send that calendar invite, send them a message saying, hey, my senior colleague has got a presentation ready, or my senior colleague is excited to have a conversation. I've set up a calendar invite. Make it easy for them. Tell them I've allowed you to modify the date or time. But then that's a really good way. I've seen people who aren't responding, who initially said, yes, they're interested, let's chat, to get on a next call, is just send an invite and make it easy on them. Don't go back and forth over a time. You can't be picky if you're trying to get them on a call. So you can try that, but really provide value in your follow-ups and have a plan to follow up.
Awesome. So as long as nobody else has any questions, I think we'll wrap things up, but we will be sending a follow-up email with Daniel's contact information so that you can reach out directly to him with any thoughts or questions that may pop up. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you, Daniel, for taking your time to host the webinar.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody who took time to come and watch today. Again, no questions are bad questions, so if you want to ask anything in private, feel free. I'd be happy to help out.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you. Everybody that came stayed the whole time,
Yeah.
except for just in the last one, we hit the one.
Yeah. Should
people-
I stop the share?
Oh, yeah. We
Anyways.
can cut it up for everybody.